What I've heard thus far off of VOLTURIAN's Red Dragon certainly has set up a very interesting album. I just covered Harley, in context as well to a night that I've been spending in getting accustomed to VOLTURIAN from a multitude of their works, in some of which are included within Crimson. About 6 tracks, I think I covered that album in total. And I've been saying for a long while, I promised that I would get a first introduction at some point. Coming off of Mortimia's collaboration with VOLTURIAN's front lady, if you're not familiar with them, Federico Lana, his collaboration, Mortimia being a one-man Gothic symphonic Norwegian metal artist, if you're not familiar, and I highly recommend his work. He did a collaboration with Federico Lana for Madonna's original song. It's a cover of Frozen. And I thought that the introduction there from Federico Lana's vocal talents, it really impressed me, as it has in terms of the collaborative model he's done for many other artists in the European scene. And I love that first introduction model, but I said in that video, it was my intention, going off of that, to get that first impression with VOLTURIAN at a later date. And I've been doing such tonight. And having covered a good plethora of tracks off of Crimson, I thought I had a good foundation, right? They're this Italian metal group that has a distinct rock energy, bit of electronic vibe in some parts. They play around with sound a bit, but they've got masterful vocals and part of Federico Lana. But now having covered Harley, and I've said this as well in the past, that Crimson was good, but that song, for me, elevated this experimental quality to their work that just... Whereas Crimson felt a bit more mainstream in certain parts, and I'm okay with that, Harley seemed to just really go for it. It's such an interesting work in a musical sense. It's really fascinating to listen to. I did think, admittedly, the video was a bit revealing for my taste. I'm like, well, you know, I tend to prefer the more modest of content and presentation, although if they were trying to go for like a vampiric motif, I found that was kind of well done in my opinion. Maybe it's not. You know, music can be open to interpretation for many people. But I found the work on a music note very interesting and quite dynamic. So I'm very curious to hear how Empty World sounds. And I'm sure maybe some of you are as well, perhaps the introduction I've given you. Maybe you're looking to, like me, expand your sense of the European library, even though I've been venturing into the space for a long time, and I've absolutely loved it. They have a terrific library of artists. And I've always, game in terms of first introductions, I'm always on the lookout for new talent in particular, because I like to spotlight new voices, especially as I expand the presence of music on this channel, which has been a long ambition of mine, and it's certainly grown, and I know it will in the 2023 year, even beyond what I was able to produce in 2022. I'm very happy with the scope of where this channel, and part of that mission, aside from many, is going. And I do hope that, and perhaps with this channel's coverage, I'm able to forge paths for you to discover talents as well. If you happen to be artist shopping, I hope to provide you some routes to exploring new talent that maybe is unfamiliar to you and other measures would be inaccessible because you don't maybe have a pure circle that is very familiar with European metal, such as myself. I don't tend to have that relation among my peers. And it's been great, by the way, inadvertently. It's not a purpose I really foresaw going in, but in me covering again maybe lesser known artists that have a clear distinctive following, it's been great to meet some of you where in my life I don't have that commonality in regards to my music taste. You know, I'm a metalhead and that does set me apart quite a bit, especially more so when I consult the European library. Nobody knows the groups I mention by name or bring any of them up, no matter how many times I recommend them. But it's been great for these videos that I've produced to have a communication with some of you as well who can say, hey, I'm a fan of this group too, or that group. It's been great to get to know many of you. And in the process of, covering Federico Lana through Mortimia's collaboration, I did come across a couple of you that are familiar with her work. And again, like I said, the connection, everybody craves that sort of unionship of others who perhaps have similar tastes and passions, and I relish that experience. So, of course, I'm looking forward to deepening that, perhaps for newer fans as well, and giving you an appreciation through what I've covered as we enjoy tracks together on a first impression. I've not heard this yet. It's entirely new. I'm still, again, processing, VOLTURIAN's work for myself. But Empty World, let's see if this is as good as Harley was. That was an impressive work, and if you haven't heard it, I think you'll find the piece fascinating, but I'm curious to see again where this track goes in its scope and if it matches in tone and vision to what I just heard for Red Dragon's construction. I'm going to pull up the video for this song. We'll get a good introduction for it ourselves at the same time. And if you're somebody that is not familiar with the way I format my content on this channel, I do try and accommodate listener tastes however I can. So if you're somebody that likes to access the lyrics of the piece as we, as you listen to a song or watch a video, I will have those available in the feed. You'll see them actually right in the video at the bottom of the screen, and they'll track along with the song as we proceed through it. All right, Empty World. Let's hear this. I'm always game for more from Federico Lana. Again, I don't have really at this point any metal artists from Italy, and it's been great to at least add one in the mix, and she is an incredibly talented singer from what I've heard. Okay, there's an electronic pop sound here more so, which is common in their work. Aggressive metal edge. It's a consistent structure that I've seen in terms of their works in the past, but it's good. This kind of banks more into the Crimson territory in its structure, but so far, yeah, I'm enjoying it. And the presentation's like a behind-the-scenes jam session.
Can see tomorrow. I see the future for me. Down deep in sorrow, I buried all of my sins. Some days I follow. They're rabbit down in the hole.
It amazes me again, like every track I've consulted thus far for VOLTURIAN, she has such a distinct sound to her voice. It's very specified. And it's not just like some sort of fluke of circumstance, it's intentional. That's what I clearly hear. It's great. Interesting lyrics. I'm wondering if I'm catch on to the meaning here. You know, music can be open to interpretation, but I think I've honed in on something. And if so, if I'm right, this is interesting. Great way to picture it.
Sound like a broken promise. Your eyes are hollow. Could I be more honest? All lies I swallowed made me stronger than you. So today I leave the room and break the mirror.
I really like the personality of this piece. And like I said, the aesthetic of performing this as a jam session adds a personality to the group. It feels like you're kind of there yourself. So it makes it even more approachable than the work stresses itself. Good pause. Great placement. This electronic break, it's fabulous. Like I said on this album, it feels like, it's kind of like Harley. It feels like VOLTURIAN's trying to run up some new things, taking some risks, and I think it's working. This definitely feels distinct in their library from what I've heard. Really good pacing all around in this piece.
Can't you see your love is a mistake? You're walking on the line, they draw below your feet. From a screen where everyone could feel, king of his own pure, fragile soul in an empty world.
That's wonderful. It's a concise tune. Great vision to it. Again, it feels quite simple in structure, and yet it's very defined. Maybe, you know, I would compare it to Harley in scope. It is very different. Like the electronic warbles that they've got, you know, in that instrumental breakdown, it's very soft in delivery, and how they switch it back in terms of that aggressive metal edge. I found the pacing, again, different and distinct. It's very specific. And I say that in respect as well to the distinctness of Federica Lana's vocal talents. Every song that I've heard thus far, she sounds different. And again, like I've said, it doesn't sound like it's too manufactured, like it's some sort of post-production change. It's defined in the way she's singing. She has a distinct personality that I'm honing in on in regards to the way she approaches her songs. And it's really impressive to me, as somebody who, again, looks for uniqueness. Every work that VOLTURIAN has made in a vocal respect feels very distinct in its energy, in the overall execution of the piece, and maybe how it's paired with the lyrics. She really is a gifted talent, you know, and I've said that about many female vocalists in the European realm, from many of the different countries under that, you know, moniker. Federica Lana, it really impresses me. And again, in context to Red Dragon, this track is very interesting, and again, very similar to Harley. It feels like an elevation. Like maybe Crimson was the ground footing, and it was good. I'm not saying it wasn't at all, but it definitely had more of like a mainstream aesthetic with some of these elements brought in. But this album in particular just feels so unique in vision. I find it interesting, like, really fascinating. I don't know if anybody else sees that. Maybe it's just me. But, like I've said, if you've never ventured into the European landscape, you are missing out, especially when it pertains to European metal. This environment is wonderful for gauging new talent and finding favorites, long-time ones. And this piece, again, like I said, is extraordinary from them. I find, again, the pacing to be quite beautiful. The lyrics, again, I wonder, in part, music is open to interpretation. Maybe you see something different than perhaps what I see. But, I read kind of what they're saying, especially in that chorus section, where you say, they draw, you're walking on the line, they draw below your feet from a screen where everyone could feel the king of his own hill. Fragile souls in an empty world. I wonder if they're meaning to commentate in part on, let's say, for example, identity in context, perhaps social conformity, rather than an individual sense. If you're kind of trying to give off the image of, hey, we've kind of departed from that type of empty feeling of just being, a follower, you've more than succeeded. In regards to ventures of what I've heard, but I can speak to many respects of European talent of what I've covered on this channel. Like, there are so many unique groups that, to me, don't sound in any way similar to other artists. They all have a very unique and individual specified personality, and VOLTURIAN certainly has that. But I wonder if part of his song, in terms of the lyrical construction, is meant to point to general society these days, especially in respect, let's say, where they say from a screen. That feels explicitly to me like a reference to technology, social media. I wonder if maybe that's the direction they're going down. I don't know. Maybe it is just supposed to be kind of like a fun song. That's not the vision at all of what they have. But I listen to it and I'm like, I wonder if it's kind of the feeling you were trying to evoke in terms of a sense of an empty world. And I get it. And I can say this with the assurance I'm not trying to position myself as some sort of saint. I could easily be considered a hypocrite on this, where I'm like, oh yeah, I get that in terms of social media idolatry, that we spend so much time behind a screen rather than, living, or perhaps that we're so dead set on being followers rather than leaders. And, I get the value in pushing against that. And yet I sit back and I think, well, I'm on my screen a lot too. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm not a hypocrite. Anyway, to my own principles. I am, we're not perfect people. I don't know if that's what they were trying to go with. It's just kind of a feeling I got from the chorus sections. The overall tune construction, like I said, I tend to be very selective, and I've said this many times in the past in regards to electronic tunes. For me, it has to have some sort of vision, and it has to be defined where it's not like just a bunch of inconsistent beats thrown together and it's like a distortion of noise. There has to be some sort of contemplative vision. It usually helps when there's a musical foundation or beautiful lyrics and vocals to let the electronic warbles and beats be a complement. I'm going to say that about VOLTURIAN. Again, I've qualified many exceptions and they fit. But the pacing of this section, especially during that instrumental break, I really do feel like, again, I don't know if anybody else can agree with this, and if you do, feel free to disclose that down below if you so wish. I feel like with Crimson setting a good baseline, VOLTURIAN in part on Red Dragon is testing around in range, being like, where can we go from here? How can we adapt our sound? How can we better fine-tune our vision? How can we make something a little more individualistic, maybe apart from other groups? I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for. I'm listening to this and I'm like, this is so distinct from what I've heard previously. I am very impressed with it. It's a dynamic work, in all honesty. It's really good. And I love, by the way, the personality of the video. Like I said, behind-the-scenes jam session. I love how Federica Lana has her hair. It's kind of like that classic, rock punk type image. It's a wonderful feeling. Again, there's a personal touch to this video that you just feel like you're kind of in that session with them and you're able to enjoy them on a deeper level. Again, I find this track quite dynamic. Like I have many of the pieces from them. And again, in no way am I trying to lessen my thoughts or disregard them in regards to Crimson. I still think that was a great introduction. But it amazes me, again, now that we have that first installment set, is the intention meant to be, with Red Dragon, we're going to go more into a testing period with this album and see what works and see what doesn't, try our hand at different things. Groups have to adapt in order to maintain that presence and fine-tune that vision of artistry. Many groups could probably speak to this, and many different artists, and whatever venture you happen to be, thinking of, and would vary in a wide variety of contexts. I wonder if, again, that's sort of the image here. And we'll hear it, I guess, in better focus if there's ever more tracks released in regards to music videos. And again, that's how I consulted in regards to what tracks I wish to cover. I went according to that structure. And I'm open, by the way. I'm going to try to listen to this album in full. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'll wait and see if there's any more videos so I can give fresh impressions. I'm not exactly sure. But that's how I've been judging the tracks. At the point where perhaps, again, that wraps up, then I'll listen to it in full, maybe on my own. Or maybe I'll listen to it before and maybe I'll be able to give you a more informed take when I listen to the track. I don't know what I'll do yet. But I'll keep an open door to VOLTURIAN. And I want to see, again, if my intuition on this, if it's a reach, or if that is the distinct vision. I want to test more tracks to see if that's where we're going. I don't know, but I find it, again, quite fascinating. What are your thoughts down below? I'm very curious to hear perhaps from you longtime VOLTURIAN fans if you agree with my path of thought on this, or, if you see something different. And for those of you who this is a first exposure, what do you think? Do you agree with me in terms of the adoration that I've given VOLTURIAN and you experience that yourself? I would love to hear your emotions down below on how you receive VOLTURIAN's tunes on behalf of a first impression. Again, I found them to be quite dynamic, and as far as I'm concerned, I might have, finished up what I have stacked for right now in regards to getting that first introduction, but like many European talents, there's always an open door as far as I'm concerned in regards to VOLTURIAN having a place on this channel in regard to me showcasing their work. I'm very impressed with what I've heard thus far. They're another great group and talent in the European metal scene. And I can say as of, this video, well, really the first one I covered, that I now have an Italian talent on my playlist. Again, I'm going all over Europe and I'm enjoying the ride because I'm finding a lot of talented work. VOLTURIAN is certainly included in that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.